We are counting down the top 10 forgotten tech fails of the 1980s, a decade where bold ideas met some hilariously disastrous realities. From kid-friendly gadgets that fizzled straight out of the box to ambitious wearables, home robots, doomed computers, and format wars that rewrote industry history. These entries all promised to change our lives, but ended up in the halls of digital infamy. Expect quirky missteps, corporate catastrophes, and tech hype gone spectacularly wrong, each ranked by their impact, flop factor, and nostalgia value. Which legendary failure tops the list as the ultimate cautionary tale of 80s ambition? Let's rewind to number 10 and see where the breakdown began. In the 10th place, the Fisher-Price PXL 2000 promised to turn every kid into a home movie director, or so the commercials claimed. At first glance, it looked like the ultimate toy. A black and white camcorder that recorded video onto ordinary cassette tapes, all for the eye-watering price of $179 in 1987, about $480 today. The buzz was real. Parents lined up, kids tore open boxes, and Fisher-Price boasted about bringing high-tech magic to the playroom. But the excitement faded fast. The PXL 2000's grainy, flickering image, just 120 by 90 pixels, made even the most action-packed backyard adventure look like a ghost story. 11 minutes per tape, batteries that drained in a flash, and controls that felt more like a puzzle than a camera. Parents flooded customer service with complaints, and stores slashed prices to clear shelves. In less than a year, the PXL 2000 went from must-have to markdown. It's a classic case of toy tech hype running headlong into reality, proof that sometimes the future just isn't ready for show and tell. Number 9. The Seiko TV watch promised to put live television on your wrist, years before smartwatches were even a concept. Launched in Japan in 1982 and arriving stateside the next year, it looked like something from a James Bond film. A digital watch with a tiny 1.2-inch grayscale LCD screen. Officially crowned the world's smallest television at the time, but the reality was less spy gadget, more science fair project. To actually watch TV, you needed to carry a Walkman-sized receiver in your pocket, run a cable up your sleeve, and plug in headphones that doubled as an antenna. The image was dim, the screen was minuscule, and battery life for the TV module barely stretched to 5 hours. All this for $495. Over $1,300 today. Only about 2,200 units sold in the first 9 months, while today's collectors might pay up to $1,500 for a complete set. Most 80s buyers quickly realized the future of television wasn't strapped to their wrist with a tangle of wires. 8th place goes to the Tomy Omnibot, a home robot that captured the 1980s dream of having a mechanical companion rolling through your living room. At first glance, Omnibot looked like a vision straight out of a sci-fi movie. Motorized arms, blinking lights, a chest-mounted tape deck, and a remote control that promised interactivity. For nearly $400 in 1984, more than $1,000 in today's money, families could bring home what the ads called the world's most advanced personal robot. The promise? Omnibot would serve drinks, wake you up, even greet guests. The reality? Every move had to be programmed in advance with the remote, and its cassette player could only play back pre-recorded messages. There was no artificial intelligence, no obstacle avoidance, and certainly no learning from its environment. Early reviews marveled at the design but quickly pointed out the limitations. Omnibot was more remote-controlled toy than robotic helper. For all the hype, it ended up gathering dust in closets, a reminder that the future of robotics wasn't quite ready to roll into the average home. Number 7. The Apple Macintosh Portable arrived in 1989 as Apple's answer to the dream of mobile computing, at least for anyone who could shoulder the weight and the price tag. Weighing in at 16 pounds, this so-called portable was closer to a sewing machine than a laptop. Apple packed it with a crisp, active matrix screen and a full-featured Macintosh motherboard. But the engineering choices came at a steep cost, $6,500 at launch, which would top $15,000 today. The battery, a hefty lead-acid brick, was supposed to free users from the wall outlet. Instead, it introduced a notorious flaw. If the battery ran low, the computer wouldn't turn on, even when plugged in. Tech reviewers marveled at the ambition, but the reality was a machine too heavy for a briefcase and too expensive for most professionals. Internal Apple memos show mounting concern as sales lagged and complaints piled up. While the Macintosh Portable set the stage for future breakthroughs, its legacy is a cautionary tale, proof that sometimes the vision of the future runs smack into the limits of physics, price, and practicality. Number 6. The Coleco Adam stands as a cautionary tale of what happens when marketing bravado steamrolls quality control. Launched in late 1983, Coleco's home computer was supposed to be a blockbuster, riding the holiday wave straight into living rooms across America. The company churned out nearly 400,000 units, promising an all-in-one package: computer, printer, tape drives, at a price that undercut the competition. But the Adam's biggest flaw wasn't in its ambition, it was in the execution. Early adopters discovered a devastating defect. Every time the computer powered on, it could erase the very data tapes it was supposed to read. The required printer, which doubled as the system's power supply, failed so often that entire setups were dead on arrival. Within months, service centers were overwhelmed, and the return rate soared to an estimated 60 to 70%. Internal memos revealed engineers had warned of these risks, but management pushed for a Christmas launch anyway. By the end of 1984, Coleco had lost $258 million on the Adam alone, a financial blow so severe it pushed the company toward bankruptcy. The Adam story is a stark reminder. In the race to be first, skipping the basics can mean losing everything. Number 5. GM's talking cars brought the digital dashboard and voice alerts to American highways, promising a new era of automotive safety and convenience. In the mid-1980s, drivers of the Buick Riviera and Oldsmobile Toronado were greeted by a synthesized voice, sometimes mid-song, delivering warnings like, "Your key is in the ignition," "The door is ajar," or "Fasten seatbelts." The Graphic Control Center, a touchscreen CRT paired with these spoken alerts, sounded like something straight out of a sci-fi movie. But the reality was less Knight Rider, more backseat nag. Each warning repeated until the issue was fixed, leading to a chorus of complaints from drivers who found the reminders grating, distracting, or just plain embarrassing. Focus groups cited the system as a source of annoyance, with some owners asking dealers to disable the voice entirely. Technical glitches didn't help. False alarms and frozen pixels were common, and the voice would interrupt music or conversations at the worst moments. GM's own safety transcripts and internal memos reveal mounting unease. What was meant to prevent accidents risked creating new distractions. Despite the futuristic promise, the talking dashboard quickly faded from showrooms. Today, it stands as an early lesson in user interface overreach, a reminder that sometimes the smartest cars are the quietest ones. Number 4. LaserDisc and RCA CED video discs offered a glimpse of cinema-quality home entertainment. At least that was the promise. When these shiny, oversized platters hit living rooms in the early 1980s, they looked like the future. LaserDisc used optical technology to deliver crisp images and stereo sound, while RCA's capacitance electronic disc relied on a stylus to read grooves, much like a vinyl record for video. Early adopters paid a premium, between $300 and $500 for a player, with individual movies often topping $30 each. But the excitement faded quickly. LaserDiscs were bulky, about the size of a vinyl LP, and CED discs were notoriously fragile, susceptible to dust, scratches, and static that could freeze or distort playback. Maintenance was a headache, with warranty letters piling up over skipping discs and worn-out styli. The biggest problem? Content. Fewer than 500 titles were available for each format at launch, leaving movie lovers with slim pickings. Meanwhile, VHS tapes were cheaper, easier to use, and crucially, let people record their own shows. Sales figures tell the story. LaserDisc and CED struggled to break into the mainstream, with RCA pulling the plug on CED after just 3 years, and LaserDisc lingering as a niche collector's item. Still, the technology behind LaserDisc didn't disappear. Its optical disc legacy paved the way for CDS, DVDS, and even Blu-ray. In the end, these format wars showed that technical brilliance alone can't guarantee a place in living rooms. Sometimes, convenience and content win the day. Coming to the top 3, Sony Betamax entered the home video race in 1975 with a clear message: superior picture, crisper sound, and the promise of Japanese engineering. Early adopters swore by Betamax's quality. Tapes looked sharper, machines felt sturdier, and Sony's branding oozed confidence. But behind the scenes, boardroom debates set Betamax on a path that would shape the future of home entertainment. Sony's executives chose to keep Betamax exclusive, licensing the technology only to a handful of partners. Meanwhile, JVC's VHS format took a different route: open licensing, rapid adoption, and a flood of third-party machines. The difference showed up on store shelves. Betamax decks ran hundreds more than their VHS rivals. And while Betamax tapes maxed out at 1 hour, VHS offered 2, and soon even more. For families hoping to record an entire movie or a football game, that extra hour made all the difference. Hollywood noticed too. More studios signed with VHS, swelling its library and making it the go-to choice for video rental shops. Sony's internal memos from the early 1980s reveal mounting concern as VHS sales soared and Betamax struggled to keep pace. The outcome wasn't just a loss for Sony, it was a global shift in how media standards are set. Betamax's technical edge couldn't overcome the power of an open ecosystem. In the end, the format war wasn't decided by sharper images or better tape. It was won by accessibility, longer recording times, and a strategy that put more machines in more living rooms. The Betamax saga stands as a cautionary tale. In tech, business decisions can matter more than engineering brilliance. In second place, the Sinclair C5 electric trike rolled out in 1985 with the promise of revolutionizing personal transport. Sir Clive Sinclair envisioned a future where city streets buzzed with silent, battery-powered vehicles, compact, affordable, and accessible to anyone over 14. The C5's design leaned hard on regulatory loopholes. By keeping its 250-watt motor and top speed under 15 miles per hour, it dodged licensing, insurance, and helmet laws. On paper, it was a masterstroke, urban mobility without red tape. But reality bit back. The C5's injection-molded plastic shell offered little protection from weather or traffic, leaving drivers exposed at bumper height to passing cars. The battery, a heavy 12-volt lead-acid unit, promised a 20-mile range, but cold mornings could cut that in half. Hills posed a bigger challenge. The motor would stall or overheat, forcing riders to pedal awkwardly, if they could manage the reverse steering logic. Early press reviews were merciless. Safety reports from the AA flagged the C5 as hard to spot and dangerously underpowered for British roads. Dealers complained of unsold stock piling up, while Sinclair's own letters reveal mounting frustration as warranty claims and negative headlines multiplied. Production forecasts aimed for 100,000 units in the first year, but fewer than 14,000 were ever made. The financial fallout was brutal: £12 million sunk, Sinclair vehicles in receivership by year's end, and a wave of public ridicule that turned the C5 into a punchline. Today, collectors retrofit them with modern batteries, but back then, the C5 was less a glimpse of the future and more a lesson in how ambition, regulation, and engineering shortcuts can collide, leaving a trail of dashed hopes and unsold dreams. And finally, in first place, Atari's ET video game burial stands as the defining symbol of 1980s tech overreach, a cautionary tale writ large across the New Mexico desert. In 1982, Atari poured millions into a high-stakes bet. An ET video game rushed from concept to cartridge in just 5 weeks, aiming to dominate the Christmas market. The pressure was immense. Atari's warehouses filled with nearly 5 million copies, but the game's confusing design and frustrating play left kids bewildered and parents demanding refunds. Shelves sagged under the weight of unsold stock, and returns piled up, turning what was supposed to be a blockbuster into a corporate nightmare. With nowhere to go, Atari made a decision that would become legend. Under the cover of night in the spring of 1983, trucks rolled into a landfill in Alamogordo, New Mexico, loaded with an estimated 700,000 to 1 million cartridges, mostly ET, but also other unsold titles and hardware. Bulldozers buried the evidence, sealing Atari's misstep beneath layers of sand and concrete. The story quickly spread, morphing into urban myth. The game's so bad, they had to hide it in the desert. But the fallout went far beyond a single product. Atari's second quarter losses soared to $536 million in 1983, and the entire video game industry teetered on the brink of collapse. Retailers lost faith, investors pulled out, and what had been a booming market suddenly cratered. For years, the burial was whispered about but never confirmed, until a 2014 excavation unearthed real ET cartridges, turning myth into fact and giving a new generation a tangible link to the crash. Developer interviews, warehouse records, and excavation footage all point to the same lesson. When hype trumps quality and deadlines override playability, the consequences can reverberate through an entire industry. The ET burial isn't just a story about a bad game. It's the moment when the dream of endless growth met the hard ground of reality. Even now, those sun-bleached cartridges serve as a warning. Sometimes, the biggest failures are the ones we try hardest to forget. From the Fisher-Price PXL 2000's pixelated promise to Atari's legendary ET video game burial, our countdown of 80s tech fails has spanned quirky missteps and industry-defining disasters. The most shocking entries, like the Sinclair C5's ill-fated electric trike and the colossal Atari landfill, show how ambition, rushed timelines, and disconnect from real user needs can transform innovation into cautionary tales. Across all 10 entries, a clear pattern emerges. Bold marketing and high expectations consistently clashed with undercooked engineering or poor market understanding. Whether it was the battle of video formats, overhyped wearable gadgets, or dreams of home robotics, each flop qualified by promising a revolution but delivering disappointment, financial loss, or even industry-wide fallout. These stories reveal that in the 1980s, the race to push boundaries often outpaced practical reality, leaving behind unforgettable reminders of tech's risks and rewards. In the end, these forgotten failures are more than punchlines. They're milestones in the ongoing story of innovation, reminding us that every leap forward comes with its share of spectacular stumbles.